today I'm talking about someone's chart. Another one of those natal chart readings, but it's going to be a bit of a surprise for those who like this person. You'll see who it is. And the surprise is Chris Evans. It's not really showing here, but it's Chris Evans. Yeah, this is Chris Evans' chart. So according to what I see, Chris Evans' chart. So anyways, so I can go straight into reading this and saying that, first of all, we see that his ascendant is in 28 degrees Scorpio. But we see 27, okay, 860, okay. Uranus is conjuncting his ascendant. So first of all, we see that ascendant in Scorpio means that you tend to have a little bit of mystery to yourself. You cheat a little bit here again. So as we know, ascendant is your mask, right? But when it comes to Scorpio, as we know, it's like, okay, let's go with these words. So penetrating, okay, private, executive, so has a bit of there's commandness to it. Because it's the mask, I would say investigative, sort of like he's very like, he likes probing things, he likes, that's interesting, probing, and he seems very passionate about what he does, right? We all know Chris Evans is an actor, but can be also temperamental, probably people perceive that. He's, again, secretive, probably can be overbearing, violent, maybe sarcasm might be over there, suspicious as well, jealous, or maybe intolerant, so very kind of like set in his own ways. That's usually what it is. But we have here Uranus conjuncting his ascendant, so that means that there's a bit of unusualness to that. But before we get into that, I want to make sure that when we do the ascendant, we're also looking into the ruling planet of Scorpio, which is, in this case, modern ruler is Pluto right here. Okay, Pluto was in retrograde here in his 11th house. So that means that first of all, because it's in retrograde, the effects of Pluto is going to be delayed. So Pluto, as we already know, Pluto is all about transformation, underworld stuff, things that are hidden, mass, all that stuff. So because of that, in retrograde, what that means, it kind of adds Pluto rules his ascendant. So Pluto rules his, basically it's, people say, I've seen this, like where it says Pluto, like whatever the ruling planet of the sign that your ascendant was in rules your entire chart. I'm not sure about that one, but to me personally, I would focus just on the ascendant. So how he appears to yourself and to other people. His first house stuff is ruled by Pluto, and so there's a delay in terms of like his what do you call this, realization of how the Pluto energy is, or the energy of basically strength and power, and like power, yeah, the use of power, use and misuse and abuse of power, and also power struggles. So he kind of appears typically like that. It doesn't appear as much like right away, probably later. People see him probably as like, they can't read him yet. They kind of, maybe it's probably opposite of Pluto, which is like not Pluto, which is like very light-hearted, very very friendly, very friendly. Not that Pluto is not friendly, but light versus dark, or like Pluto, people might see him as something else he's not. So there's a kind of, again, there's a delay to that, but also delay to his Uranus right here, because Uranus is also in retrograde. You can see that right there. You see the little R? I don't know if you can see it. It's right there. Okay. So there's a delay in sort of like both what people might see him as, like his, I guess his true identity doesn't also come out. Like Pluto also reveals what is true. So, and with Uranus there, it also reveals the strangeness, but also delayed in that case. It's retrograde. So that means that he comes off as a normal, very welcoming sort of person, or doesn't have a lot of secrets, or doesn't have trauma in his life. But really, later that pops out and people start to see, oh, wait a second, he's a bit unusual, bohemian, quite humanitarian, actually eccentric, and also very individualistic, autonomous, all that stuff. But because it's stronger, there's a kind of a combination here, stronger in both Scorpio and less, of course, Pluto, but also Uranus. Because Uranus is also in Scorpio, so that means Uranus in Scorpio is all about strangeness in power, so to speak, the unusual things we experience um, um, through power, or rather, if you look at it, Scorpio, the color is Uranus in this case. It's actually same with mine, where it's what's that word? Sorry, it's exalted in Scorpio, so it has a bit more. Aside from it, like if it were in Aquarius, it'd be like just straightforward. It'd be in its dignity. It's dignified in Scorpio. I mean, so in Aquarius, so it's very much intellectual, that stuff. Right? But in Scorpio, it's more about weirdness, but unusual things, revolutions, and all those things. Individualism specifically, because it pertains to the ascendant. So. Weird, like I said, unexpected, kind of unpredictable, again, eccentric, futuristic, sort of, I would say. He kind of might appear that way, but of course later, because it's in retrograde. But in a way that's very Scorpio. So what that means is it's he's still secretive about it. So there's a lot of secretness and hidden stuff. Also because it's in the 12th house. You look at it, so it's like double the secretness, or things that he might have to develop in himself that he didn't really learn as a younger person, right? First house is first. For whenever you have first house, it's all like the experiences. Your first, any sort of like what do you call it? Like, yeah, first experiences. You know, the first time for everything, kind of thing, right? So that's the first house stuff. So it's tied to the mask, and that's what people see, and so yeah. So, and then we look at the ruling, so we have that one. And so we see here that Scorpio rules, or Pluto rules his first house as well. So that means it's also probably like, when it comes to like his physical body, it's sort of, he's very mysterious. Like, you can say he's very alluring as well. Like, he's the BILF. Okay, for me, he's BILF. Okay, for those who don't use that, I want to use that. It's not a really official term. I don't think so, but yeah, to me, he's like, yeah. It's like, oh my goodness, like, he's so drawn to it. So it's very magnetic personality, or at least magnetic mask, magnetic persona, or like first impression, what we get. I mean, it's very like, you're really drawn to him, right? So yeah, but you're also drawn to his weirdness, the things he chooses to do, I suppose. Maybe that's why he got into weird roles, what he does, it's like, or unusual rather, or sudden different roles, where you see him as Captain America before he was in American Pie, or is it something like that? I don't know, some kind of where he was like being raunchy. There's a very Plutonian Scorpio sort of thing, where he like very into new things that are like, slave and master, S&M sort of stuff, sexy stuff, or power-based sort of stuff. But their meaning behind it is like, it's that inner sort of trust that Scorpio wants. It's that inner sort of like a real connection, deeper connection, more than just its previous sign, which was Libra. So it's very much like that. Now, I don't want to go too much into so much detail that we forget the other things. There's so many more things here. There's also, we see here Uranus was in 27 degrees, right? We see Uranus in 27 degrees, but it was in retrograde. That means it's like almost a perfect conjunction to his ascendant. But we also have to look at, first of all, how that affects his descendant. We cannot ignore the descendant stuff. So descendant in this case was 20 degrees Taurus. So what that means is, in opposition to his ascendant, is that his descendant means that he relates in a very, I guess you can say, like, it's a reflection. It's a shadow part. It's a part of ourselves. It's like the shadow of his ascendant means that he comes off as this very calm, certain person who's detached in a way and likes pleasing things, that are very Taurian in nature itself, right? Speaking of nature, and very much into like material things like even gift giving, very sort of, Taurus rules the second house, which is all about the love we receive, or sorry, the resources we receive. So it's a bit of generosity in Taurus, but it's also very like grounded and it's very stubborn. But the stubbornness between the two signs, Scorpio and Taurus, in this case, how it reflects the ascendant and the descendant, is that the Taurus in his descendant means that even though there's not so much about the control, it's more about the pleasure. It's all about the relationship with, which is all, pleasure based, right? It's Venus. That there we don't people don't really see that. First they see this one and then they realize, oh, when he relates. So he has to go through this balance between the two, ascendant and descendant, where he has to relate in terms of what he can control and what he cannot control, what he can let go and what he can keep. All right. So that's the kind of the shadow effect between the two signs, where one is giving, one is getting. And also it's all about, because Taurus is more material based, whereas Scorpio is also like that, but Scorpio wants to use material to find inner meaning. It's more physical than material. Taurus is also physical, but Taurus is more like earthy sort of a feel, whereas Scorpio is more like, let's go deeper than the earth. Right? Let's go deeper than that. Let's go into what makes the earth grow, which is water. Right? So he has to probably constantly, still today, I'm not sure, maybe today, is to find that balance. And then we look into the Uranus. We have Mars opposite of that, and also Chiron. And what that means for specifically his ascendant is that, let's take a look. His ascendant is showing, of course, we know it's very Scorpio, but weirdness, right? The opposition to that is Mars, so that means in Gemini, meaning that he's able to maybe not kind of have to balance between subconscious desires or subconscious tendencies to be weird, but it's hidden in the 12th house. And so that's what people see, but they don't see that actually. What they see is probably if he were to reject this, aggression might come forward, right? Aggression might be seen as like, or rather through words, aggression through, or assertiveness through words. That's virility. That's sort of that, is it called the male principle? No, that's the sun. So he might come across as like verbally aggressive, verbally angry, if he doesn't learn to balance Uranus, Mars tendency. More Uranus, Mars actually aspects can lead to very unusual behavior, very sort of dark as well. There's darkness to it as well. There's a dark side to Gemini, right? Because it's so flexible. Gemini is so adaptable that sometimes maybe he gets pushed around, right? That might be the trouble with his 7th house. He has these contracts or these marriages or these agreements with people and open enemies that he doesn't, and if he doesn't process it, it comes through his subconscious. It's like, oh, I have all these weird, unusual dreams about it. And then we also have the 6th house stuff, which is his workplace. Most likely is like acting, any sort of help he does, any sort of volunteer he does, might come up to like loss of friendships or loss of jobs. Actually probably experience that because we have Chiron here opposite of Uranus. So any sort of, he probably experiences this in a weird way and unusual, but delayed weirdness, delayed realization, delayed wisdom and insight from his dreams, because it's like probably he has to constantly probably go through it subconsciously or maybe unconsciously as well, because we have the 12th house linked to the 6th house. 6th house is unconscious behavior or the unconscious. So if he's not aware of the loss and how he can work with that pain, right? The wounding of Chiron in Taurus is loss of things, specifically like material things, or worth, self-worth as well, because Taurus rules the 2nd house. Okay?